Well, hey, everybody. Hey, Facebook Live. Hope you are doing well. And I am looking forward to this amazing week that we have coming up. I'd love to get a shout out to any of you that let me know where you're watching from, because we're gearing back up. We've made a few upgrades and changes and improvements to the podcast, namely the talk show format, in which I'm going to have not just one guest at a time, but I'm going to do them in groups of, last week I did them in groups of two, and that was a little of an adjustment, but this week we're going to do them in groups of threes. Now, don't worry, I'm going to still have a one-on-one podcast episode when it comes out on podcast. However, I'm going to do them, in groups of threes, which is just going to be a lot of fun. Now, this cough is betraying me because I've had a little bit of a nasty little throat thing the last couple of days. I'm sure I will be ready to go by the time that Wednesday rolls around. And let's take a look at what we're looking at this week. It is going to be amazing. So first off, we have Heather Bischoff. Her talk is called How Asking the Right Questions Can Change Your Life. There's a lot of stuff that she has covered in this TEDx Normal talk that she has. It's a branded talk, and she gave it at TEDx Normal. And this is one of those great first-person perspective talks from Heather's own adventure and experience into motherhood, and some of the lessons that she's learned from that. Some really interesting studies that I had never heard about before, so it's got all of that. It's got the personal element, it's got the authenticity of the sharing, and it's got some real data and some lessons learned and some ideas to think about there. After that, we go to, and I'm going to say his name, probably say his name wrong, so I'm going to be probably pronouncing it better on Wednesday when I interview Bogomil Baranowski, who is an investor, and he's going to be sharing about the 3 ways to unleash the great investor in you. Some really good, solid wisdom about investing, and he puts it together, Bogomil puts it together in a really fresh way that I really appreciate. After that, we have Galya Westler, and she talks about, she calls it, her title, Social Media Obesity and Loneliness. And I think by that what she means is that we're really going pretty hard on the social media to try to get our immediate needs met or desires met, and we're ending up just plain lonely. And so she has some interesting data that she's collected. She has some interesting conclusions that she has found as well. After that, we have Steve Rohr. He shares How on Earth Do You Matter? I love the way that his talk starts out, because he talks about all kinds of astrological stuff, or astronomical stuff, not astrological, but astronomical stuff. It's kind of like the kind of stuff that'll make your head swim at the insignificance of how small we are. And then he takes it and pivots it over to Van Cliburn, of all people, who was the celebrated Cold War pianist from Texas who won the Tchaikovsky competition. So this is really going to be interesting, because as a fellow pianist myself, or former pianist, I can talk about Van Cliburn certainly all day long. After that, we have Gabrielle Bosché. Gabrielle's talk is all about millennials. And so she talks about how millennials have been called the next greatest generation, and they've kind of been put in a tough spot because they haven't really gotten a chance to discover their own greatness yet, and yet there are other generations calling them the next greatest generation. And I know that for a lot of people, they would not necessarily say that about millennials. I'm glad that she's heard that people are calling millennials by that name, because it's a nice name. It's a much nicer name than some of the other very unfair names that I've heard millennials are called sometimes. After that, we have Paula Quinsee, and Paula talks about how relationships are the currency of the future. Relationships are the currency of the future. Here we have another social media talk about how we are misplacing legitimate needs as human beings, and we're looking for technology to fulfill us instead of becoming more available and becoming more present. And that's actually really hard to do, just because Paula rightly mentions how more and more people are having to work second jobs and getting busier and busier with less free time or rest. So very good points that Paula makes as well, and a couple of neat little twists and turns with her talk as well. Z Yang, I'll find out how to pronounce his name in a couple of days, but he calls himself Z, and this is going to be a fun one. This is all about gaming and video games, and I think his talk may be called, I don't have it in front of me, I think it's called something like Video Games Save My Life or something like that. And actually, literally, video games did save his life, because he plays hours of games per day. He was in a situation where he was bedridden, and the only thing that he could do to just mentally do any kind of workout at all was video games. And this may sound crazy to some of you, but he was able to collaborate with people all over the world that don't speak the same language, but they got the same teamwork, the same ethic, and the same purpose towards a goal. And now Z has started a computer game company to really focus on problem solving on some of the big issues that matter in business, in the environment, in politics, in different domains of life. So I'm really looking forward to talking to Z about all of that. And then finally, we have Jay Barnard. Jay is, wow, he gets the prize. Jay, you're probably watching this, buddy. You get the prize for being by far the most engaged person that I have ever anticipated interviewing. You know why? Because Jay has, he has really got it. Jay gets it. The reason why I started this podcast, it's not just to spread other people's ideas, it's to spread your ideas. Both you, in terms of you watching this that haven't given a branded talk yet, that you haven't, gotten your talk accepted, or maybe you haven't even videotaped a 2-minute summary of your talk. You need to get my upcoming course if you haven't gotten working on this yet, because you've got ideas that need to be spread, and you've got to articulate them in a meaningful way that other people can get engaged and excited about, so that they can spread the message for you. Now, for the other audience are the people like Jay, who did give a talk to change the world, and Jay gets it because he hears from me. I say, hey, I want you to apply to this talk. I think you could get on the show. He applies, he gets on the show, and then he gets excited. He starts spreading the news. He started spreading the news from day one. He started spreading the news a week before this. I mean, the guy is excited. And Jay, I can't wait to interview you. Jay has an amazing talk, and this is about as personal. It's about as intense as it possibly gets. His domain is chefrecovery.com, and like you might think from that, his talk is all about how he recovered from multiple addictions. It's a very powerful talk because he gets very vulnerable and he shares what his life was like, and more importantly than even that, he shares the turning point. And it's just amazing. There's a moment in his talk before he talks about the prayer, surrender that he had, to his higher power. There was a point before that gave him the awareness of the kind of life that he could live. So, Jay, I'm really proud to have you on the talk. I can't wait to see you this week. It's going to be amazing. Oh, my gosh. Now, after that, we have a few additional interviews. Let's see here. We welcome back Ruthann Russo to the talk. We created some platinum content with Ruthann a couple of weeks ago, which are on Facebook Live. We talked about the often swept under the rug issue of physician burnout. Now, you say to me, Nathan, aren't doctors all rich and, playing golf and all this stuff? Well, if I don't know any that actually play golf. I know that's a stereotype. I'm sure there are many doctors that play golf, but I've never known any that actually play golf. The ones I know are actually studying every 5 or 10 years to get recertified as a board-certified physician. The ones that I know are trying to hold it all together when they have to break unfortunate news to grieving or soon-to-be grieving family. They're racking their brain to find solutions that may not exist, and then have to be, firm and straight with families and with patients instead of sugarcoating the news. And they're doing everything that they possibly can. And on a good day, when they do everything right on their end and no mistakes, a good day, everything right on their end, it could still go south very quickly for their patients and their loved ones. And I can't imagine the toll that takes. However, I've seen that up front and personal my whole life, because there have been people in my extended family, there are people in my family right now, and I've grown up very close to this. I went to college, and many of my friends were in pre-med and going through the rigors of that. And in my life station right now, I'm right up against the middle of it. So Ruthann Russo's talk that we talked about a couple of weeks ago on physician burnout, there is some real data and there are some real statistics coming out of Stanford University. It's just powerful stuff. I don't want to talk about what we already talked about, but you should spread that to anyone that you know that works in healthcare or manages or administrates healthcare or is on the board of directors on a hospital or a healthcare organization. It's going to be powerful. I am going to interview Ruthann on her actual branded talk this week because we did it a little bit out of order. And when you interview somebody with 4 terminal degrees, yes, 4 doctoral degrees, you change up the order a little bit when you need to. Ruthann has 4 terminal degrees. She's only the second person I've met in my entire life with not 2, not 3, but 4 terminal degrees, and she's just a joy to connect with. I am very much looking forward to talking to Rob Portil. And Rob, I believe, is the organizer of TEDx Sedona out in Sedona, Arizona. We've featured several of his alumni, and I'm looking forward to having him on the talk. I don't believe that he's given a talk, so we're going to talk instead about, the life and the point of view of an organizer. And we're going to have that organizer's hat on. Now, I've done this a handful of other times before, and I'm really looking forward to adding Rob to the lineup as we value that organizer's perspective very, very much. Now, in addition to this, I've got some new platinum content coming. We're going to welcome back Rachel Smets to the talk, and she's going to be talking about how to operate in different countries, how to be living offshore and expatriating and adapting to the culture. And there's a whole bunch of learning lessons that she has, having gone all around the world and being an extensively desired subject matter expert in that area. So I'm looking forward. She was given some talks, I believe, in Europe, maybe even some other places not long ago. So I'm looking forward to having Rachel back. And we welcome back for some platinum content as well, Melissa Agnes. Melissa talks about how to rescue, if you need to, rescue brands in crisis, but more importantly, how to make your brand a crisis-proof brand. So if you're a solopreneur, you need to listen to this, but especially if you work the day job, if you're a corporate person, if you're a road warrior, if you're flying around on behalf of your corporation, you need to hear about this because you need to start crisis-proofing your brand because, even if you are able to get out of the hole when a crisis happens, there's a talent war out there. We are below full employment. When I took AP Economics as a high school kid, whatever it was, 30 years ago, almost 25 years ago, I learned that full employment is not 0% unemployment. It's 5% unemployment. We are below that right now. And that's really, really good news for everybody out there that wants to have a job. Now, that's not good news. That's not good news for everybody who has a job, because that means that it's going to be harder to find the best people and to keep the best people. So, the brands are in flux right now. Their culture is in flux. I mean, culture is the most powerful competitive advantage that anybody has. And that is, that's public enemy right now, number one. That's crisis number one right now. So you need to tune back in. I'm going to talk with, where'd we go here? I'm looking on with Melissa Agnes, and we're going to go even deeper dive into her book and how to crisis-proof the brand. So that's really about it. I mentioned a little bit about the new format. Let me tell you a little bit more about the Get Accepted course. I believe at this point it's going to be a 5-day course. It's going to be an email course that you subscribe to. It's going to be absolutely free to start, meaning that the first 100 or 200 people that go through, I'm not even going to think about making that a premium resource. I'm just going to make it a resource because I want you to go through the course. And here's something that's really new and different about this. This is not, if you want the 5 simple steps or the 5 things you can do to land your TED Talk, you can go pay somebody else the $100 for their course, because I know there's a whole bunch of courses out there about the 5 little things that you can do, one time, and then you'll land your talk. Folks, it didn't work that way for me, okay? And it's probably, unless you are an extremely influential person, unless you are an extremely influential person who knows a whole bunch of other organizers, who's really in demand, you're a best-selling author or speaker or something like that, like best of the best selling, it's probably not going to happen to you. It's not about steps. It's not about one-time things. It's about something else entirely. And the good news is that this is going to help you. If you want to keynote more, if you want to land more paid gigs, this approach that I have is going to help you do all those things as well, because it's not one-time things. It's not steps. It's daily or weekly habits. And so I have 5 simple habits that you can begin to implement over time that will bring you to the red carpet, will bring you to the stage, okay? And like I said, don't just have a goal to give a branded talk for free. No, you should have a goal to sell your talk. Maybe you go to a, Google Talks or an Idea City or a Q Ideas or one of these branded talks, give that talk one time for free, and then everybody else that wants that talk, it's not free anymore. That's what you should be doing. And it's habits, not one-time events, that are going to give you the right mindset for success. So you're going to want to reach out to me if you want early access to that course, because I haven't created it yet. I have about halfway created it. I just haven't polished it. I haven't published it yet. There are a couple other things on the docket, but if you want early access to that, it might be a good time to reach out to me, because I could use a couple of extra eyes to give me a little bit of feedback. So 10 people or so, I might be inclined to actually jump on with all of you for a little Q&A and make this thing better, and then acknowledge you in the course. How's that for a cool deal? Well, reach out to me at Nathan@BeTheTalk if you want to cash in on that deal. And that's about it for this week, my friends. I am looking forward to having a great week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing. And thanks for helping promote and share these amazing ideas. And I'll see you on the stage. Take care, everybody.